I think it was trying to make it up as it went along. Like it tried to plug the holes of a ship that might have been sinking a little bit, because you're kind of left with a lot more questions. Like, why did this happen? Why was this necessary? Why did we have to see a scene of this? And you're just waiting for what makes sense. And the movie at no point makes sense.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Don't Worry, Darling. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and I am joined by my darling, Shahbaz. Hello, Shahbaz.
Well, that's so sweet of you. I didn't expect it, and now I'm a little thrown off, but
Yes.
I'm gonna recover. Hey, how you doing, darling? Should I call you darling as well, sweetie?
Are you calling me darling or darlin?
Well, I'd call you darling because I'm more of a southern kind of gal.
Oh, I like that. Also, if you call me like Darlin, that sounds like a Star Wars character name.
It does sound like a Star Wars.
It sounds like
name.
a character that would be in Andor.
Yeah. It's Darlin. Oh, he's got
Darlin.
4 lightsabers. Oh, okay.
Interesting. Okay, nice to meet you, Shay. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We're now in that post-TIFF era. This is our first post-TIFF film, I guess you could say.
It is, yeah. It felt weird because when I was reading the introduction, I was like, "Hold on a second, am I missing something? Am I not introducing this properly?" But yeah. It's a little weird to say things without like the movie podcast at TIFF 2022. You know, what I mean?
This is
very strange.
One of the first movies, minus The Fabelmans, where we're going back to kind of giving a recommendation on how you should watch this movie, or if you should not watch this movie.
Right. So if you're new to the movie podcast, hello and welcome. Thank you for being here, part of the show. We love movies. We love shows. We love everything that tells stories, everything that we have good times with. But we don't typically give, a scored review here on the show. And I mean, we don't typically. I mean, we never do it. I don't know why I was.
Was there one that I missed?
The blow for you. No, we don't give numbered scores here. We don't give letter grades. We don't give star ratings. We just tell you whether or not we think the movie is worth your time in the theater. We'll say watch it. We'll say add it to your queue, stream it. Real gem if it really is something special, or skip it if it's not worth your time. So there's lots of different, ways that we'll recommend a movie to you. So we'll get into all of that and what it all means for Don't Worry, Darling at the end of this. But as always, you can catch a brand new episode of the Movie Podcast what feels like every single day now. We have an incredible amount of episodes out from the Toronto International Film Festival. Go check out all of our reviews. Like Shay mentioned, we have The Fabelmans, we have Weird, we have The Whale, we have The Banshees of Inisherin, Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery, Pearl, and so many more. Go check out all of those incredible episodes and reviews. We also have a couple of great interviews that are out on the Movie Podcast feed right now. We spoke about Andor at the top of this show. We have a bunch of the cast from Star Wars Andor, which is going to be releasing on Disney Plus this week. You can listen to our interviews now and check out our review of the show later today. So if you're listening to this on September 20th in the morning, at noon today, we will have our Andor review out for you to listen to. We also have 2 very big interviews that we dropped on the Movie Podcast feed, beginning with Brendan Fraser and screenwriter Samuel D. Hunter of The Whale. We got to sit down, you and I, Shay, with Brendan Fraser in a round table with 2 other outlets and talk to Brendan Fraser, one of our favorite actors growing up and to this day, about his performance in The Whale. We're gonna get people to go listen to that. What were your, like, how are you feeling post Brendan Fraser, Shay?
I still think about that conversation. I can't even call it an interview per se, because I guess it flowed so naturally. It just felt like a group of people just sitting down having that kind of discussion. And I think about it because of, when it comes to inside baseball here, when it comes to a lot of the things that we do, we typically haven't done a roundtable. And I was a little hesitant at first because I was like, I don't want to share time with other people, because then it kind of can feel like we're not getting our message or our point across. But I really did like it because, the people that we were paired with as well, we had Rachel Ho and we had Steve Norton from Screenfish, and Rachel Ho, who's also, doing Exclaim. It was great that we had almost the same kind of mind meld as to what kind of questions we wanted to ask. And I think,
flowed.
And with Brendan as well, he just he was just so down to earth. And I think, it really just there was one point where I think he even said call me whatever you want, as long as you just call me as long as I know that you're calling me. And I'm like, man, you're Brendan Fraser. Like, I wouldn't just call you whatever I want. Like, you're Brendan Fraser. So it was just,
We had an amazing time with that interview. So please go listen to it. We kind of break it down beginning before and after the interview in that episode. So go check it out. And we also got to do a bunch of different interviews for Raymond and Ray, which is an Apple TV Plus original film that's going to be releasing in October on Apple TV Plus, October 21st. So I got to speak with the director, Rodrigo Garcia, and Shay got to speak with Maribel Verdu and Sophie Okonedo, which those interviews are going to be coming out in October. But we did get to talk to the two leads of the film, Ewan McGregor and Ethan Hawke. Shay, what was it like being in that room with them?
Nerve-wracking, but it was only it's like, if you ever watched the show Severance, which is Apple TV Plus, there's that moment where you're going down the elevator and everything kind of like kicks in.
Yeah.
Me walking into the hallway and seeing them like work, or the movie podcast, Shay kicked right in.
Yeah.
And I shook right into that moment.
Thank God.
And
I spent so much money on paying for those implants on you guys, so I'm so glad they're working.
That makes sense. That weird surgery day that we had. I was like, why
remember
are we doing this?
That surgery getaway we did?
Yeah, you're like, hey, Shay, whatever you want, it's on the house. And I walked out of it feeling like nothing changed. But no, I walked in that room and it was just like, it was a blink and you miss it thing. When I rewatched the interview, I was like, oh my God, thank God
That's me.
I was conscious during it. Yeah. And I look normal.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I look normal. I don't look crazy or nervous.
Yeah. I remember like when they opened the door and they just looked at me, I was like, oh my God, they're seeing into me right now.
Yeah.
And then you were walking out and I'm like, oh my God, Shay, like that just happened.
Well, yeah. And the weirdest part is like both Ethan and Ewan were like, finger to the throat to you. They were like, right when the door opened, they're like, and I was like, oh, damn it. Daniel, I don't know what you did.
They called me in next. Like it's like you're in the principal's office. Like, hey, come in. I'm like, oh no,
come in. Your mom's on the phone with us. Why? Yeah.
But go check that out. Honestly, we have such incredible episodes out. Like I'm looking at all of our TIFF coverage, and I'm just dumbfounded at all the the incredible opportunities that we've been blessed to have. So go check that all out, and I implore you as well, please. Go follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd at The Movie Podcast. We have clips of everything we're doing. We have posts. We have our announcements. That's where you're going to want to follow us to stay up to date on everything The Movie Podcast. Go check it out. Go check us out. Also, I want to implore you, go join our Discord. As we love to say on the show, these episodes may end, but the conversation doesn't have to stop here. So please go join our Discord. We're having some great conversations. We're going to open up an Andor spoiler room so we could have some great Andor conversations later this week. And we're going to keep the conversations going with She-Hulk, House of the Dragon, The Rings of Power, and so many more. So look forward to all of that. And we're going into a busy movie season again. So we're going to have lots of great conversations in there. You don't want to miss it. But today is all about Don't Worry, Darling. This film is directed by Olivia Wilde, and it stars Florence Pugh, Harry Styles, and of course, it will also has a supporting cast of Olivia Wilde, Gemma Chan, KiKi Layne, Nick Kroll, and Chris Pine. This film is going to be releasing exclusively in theaters on September 23rd by Warner Brothers, and I want to say thank you to our friends Warner Brothers Canada for inviting us to watch this review. Now, Shay, you're going to start us off with the synopsis.
Florence Pugh and Harry Styles star as Alice and Jack Chambers, a young, happy couple in the 1950s living in the seemingly perfect company town of Victory, California, which has been created and paid for by the mysterious company for which Jack works. Curiosity about the nature of her husband's work on the secret Victory project begins to consume Alice and raise tensions within the community.
Excellent. Now, Shay, normally we'll have a third here, but, Anthony is still out doing his severance surgery for the movie podcast. So he's not here to give his first reaction today. But I would love for you to start us off. This film has been a long time coming. We've been looking forward to it very much. This is Olivia Wilde's also biggest film that I think that of her career so
directed
far. After directed film coming off of Booksmart. So please start us off with your first reactions to Don't Worry, Darling.
I loved the trailer for this movie. It's one of those trailers that I kept rewatching because it really just kind of stuck in my brain. And I love the mystery around the trailer too. It gives you more questions than answers. Now, when it comes to the movie, the same effect occurs, but it's not for the benefit of the film. I left with a lot more questions than I did with answers. And I think that's kind of where this movie struggled for me. But let me talk about the positives first.
Yeah, let's do it.
I love the cast. I absolutely love Florence Pugh. I think, she when she shows up on set, when she shows up to do a film, no matter what it is, she's giving it all. And you see it in her acting, you see it in her mannerisms, you see it in everything that she does. She completely brings herself to the character. Chris Pine, Gemma Chan, all of these fantastic actors. I think the weak link for me might have been Harry Styles. I think he looks the part. I think he blended into the 50s really well, but I think his acting still isn't as strong. And when you have someone like Harry Styles paired against Florence Pugh, you have someone who's really fucking good at their job, just kind of like trying to carry along Harry. I think Harry does a decent job, but it never made me go like, oh, I get it. I get why they're paired together right now. Because when you see Chris Pine and Gemma Chan, even though they're not in the movie a lot, their subtle behavior really complements each other, and you get why
Yes.
they're a couple. It
Yeah,
just it
you
blends
definitely see
in.
that. They do, and I think that's the thing, right? Like Florence Pugh, and Florence Pugh is like the next great movie star.
100%.
She is phenomenal.
Golden era, really.
She is just so amazing in everything that she's in. So when you pair her next to anyone, she's going to outshine them, as you said, Shay.
Yeah.
But I think, especially with Harry Styles, who I think this is his first real like heavy hitting lead role, I don't think he has the gravitas. I don't think he has the acting prowess as everyone else does in this film. And for a film that rests so much on this couple's shoulders, I think Florence Pugh takes the brunt of that, and she carries this movie throughout, right?
Right. Now, the issues that I kind of have with this film is, the film clocks in about 2 hours long, but the issue that I really served with it was it takes way too long to get to what the point of it is. You're constantly seeing the same imagery, you're constantly seeing the same trauma that Florence is carrying throughout the movie. And while it's all fun and games for the illusions that you're kind of seeing and just the beauty on the screen, you're kind of just wondering, like, what is the point? Where are we going with this? When can
Right.
we get to an understanding of what's going on? Because if you're saving everything until the very end, that ending better hit, or else I feel like I've wasted my time.
Right.
And the thing is, it didn't. In fact, all it kept doing was, I think it was trying to make it up as it went along. Like, it tried to plug the holes of a ship that might have been sinking a little bit, because you're kind of left with a lot more questions. Like, why did this happen? Why was this necessary? Why did we have to see a scene of this? And you're just waiting for what makes sense. And the movie at no point makes sense. It just feels very silly. It feels kind of grand. It feels like it's trying to be smarter than it is. And it really bothered me, because I never felt fulfilled at any point. I loved watching the actors, but truthfully, if I want to watch a great Florence Pugh performance, I'd maybe rather go watch Little Woman or Midsummer or something where everything around the film also encompasses the acting and is graced by the acting.
Right. That's a great point that you bring up, Shay, because this movie introduces a lot of ideas very late in the game. And I would say the last act of this film that we're really getting the revelations, we're really getting the reveals. But you're like, this is too little, too late. You're introducing ideas that weren't set up before. You're making we have characters making accusations that weren't really ever referenced or kind of thought out earlier in the movie. So when things are being revealed or things are, tensions are rising, you're like, hold on, when was this established? Or why is this being introduced now? What is this idea? And it really pulls you out, because we haven't spoken about this in a while, but in a lot of our reviews for films, I would say last year or the years previously, we would talk about, like, this movie's making me question the reality of its world. I always use the example, I never question in the MCU, and I'm using the MCU because it's an easy franchise to grasp at. I never questioned seeing Iron Man fly. You see him fly, you believe it. They've made you believe that is something in that world. When Thanos came to Earth years later after watching Iron Man, I'm like, I understand what's going on here. This has been established. This has been set up. And again, I'm using Marvel just because it's the quickest reference I could grab.
I think another great reference. Sorry to cut you off there, Dan. I think another great reference is Inception. Like, where again, you believe it. It makes sense.
You're giving me the rules. You're telling me the rules of your world abide by them, right? Where this movie, it felt like we are introducing so many different concepts, so many different ideas that by the end of this film, the more you think about it, the more you're unspooling it, and you just keep unspooling it. And you keep pulling that thread, pulling that thread, pulling that thread, pulling that thread, and then it leads to no answers. And the ending of this film, right as things are really starting to cook and really starting to heat up, and be like, yes, okay, we're going somewhere, it abruptly ends, and I'm like, that's perplexed me. This is a very perplexing ending. Again, we're not spoiling anything, but the last, I would say, 30% of this film, the last act of this movie, really is just very, very oddly put together, because it felt like it's trying to accommodate for time that was lost in the beginning, where yes, Florence Pugh is putting on a clinic acting wise, she's phenomenal, but it's not enough to just kind of dwell in her trauma and dwell in her performance of something doesn't feel right, no one believes me, because we dwell on that rather than her being explorative or being investigative of what's happening. It's all very surface level, and I just wish that it really felt smarter. I wish it was deeper than what it ended up actually being, because if anyone who watches a trailer and you're seeing something like this, I feel like you'll be able to piece together what's going on in this movie, and then they give you some more explanations. You're like, okay, this is weird that you decided to go this route.
I agree with you within a certain believability there. Like, yeah, like you can.
Dude, you don't believe me 100%. Some friend you are.
I'm right there with you, Dan. I like where your head's at.
I'm starting to worry, darling.
But like you can kind of piece together what this movie's about. But then when you actually find out what it's really about, I think it felt like a wet balloon. I was just like, oh
yeah.
Oh, that's that. So that is what it's about. But it's even sillier than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And now you've introduced more plot devices into a film that already was taking so long. With just every scene was just Florence Pugh like acting by herself, and then eventually it's like, oh yeah, we have a story to tell as well. But we'll get to that.
But I do want to say though, because you mentioned them earlier, Chris Pine. He is so handsome. He is so cunning. He's so charismatic. It's a damn crime that he was not in this film more. As was Gemma Chan. She is so great. They are such a wonderful pair together. They have like this essence to them.
Yeah.
And I love it because they're just so alluring when they're on screen.
Absolutely.
You're just like, my God, I just want to look at you guys. I want to, you guys are playing your roles so damn well. I just wish that we got to live with you guys longer, because as much as it's as great as the Florence Pugh show is, it's not enough to really, to take you where, it's not enough gasoline to take you where this movie's going.
No, right? because Florence is putting on a great show in the sense of like, she's confused, she's going through hysteria, and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. But what Chris and Gemma were doing was this almost question mark sinister evil that you're like, are you guys bad? Are you guys good? Like, what is this? What are we like? What is Florence seeing you guys that we're not seeing, or vice versa? And
I wish we were let in on it, right? I wish we were let in behind the secret a bit more, because when it comes to the ending of this film, the last act, and the revelations are being shown and the twists are being turned, you're just like, oh, when was this established? What is this? And I felt like this.
Why are you telling us now?
I felt like, Don't Worry, Darling, where this film was so in love with its concept, it was so in love with the idea of itself, that it got lost in itself along the way.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, it really starts to crumble under its own vision.
Exactly that. Shay, let's get to our final recommendations for this film. I'm going to get you to start us off.
I think this movie is going to do well in the sense that box office wise, it has the people to draw you in.
Yeah. Great cast. There's great supporting cast in this too. Nick Kroll is great in this too. Again, very sparingly used, right?
Very sparingly used. But to be honest with you, I didn't enjoy my time with this movie in the sense that I wanted to. There's elements that I did enjoy, but overall, I'd say skip it.
Got you. I'm right there with you. I think there's so much in this movie that I really like the idea of this film. I love the concept of this movie. And again, Chris Pine and Florence Pugh are fantastic in it. But that's going to, your mileage will vary for that, because that's, like, for me personally, that's not enough for me to warrant another watch of this movie. Throughout my time while watching it, I'm like, this is going to be a big date night movie, and I see a lot of couples going to watch this as well too. I see a lot of Harry Styles fans going to go watch it, and I see a lot of people wanting to watch it just because everything surrounding the movie. But I think for myself, it's a skip it for me. Like, there's Cool ideas, like I said, but it's not one that I'm really going to remember much after today. So yeah, it's a skip it for me, unfortunately. It's too bad because it was one I know we were looking forward to as well. Please, thank you so much for listening to the movie podcast review of Don't Worry, Darling. As always, you can catch a new episode of our show throughout the week. Lots of episodes, lots of interviews, and lots of reviews coming your way. Please check out all of our incredible TIFF coverage, as well as our interviews with Ewan McGregor, Ethan Hawke, and Brendan Fraser, and lots more coming. We have our Andor interviews out now. We have our Andor review coming, and we have maybe another, some special guests joining us later this week that you'll be able to see very, very soon. So please follow us at The Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. Join us on Discord and check out our show notes for all of those links and more. That was This Time with The Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.